Like cousins, we're on, and it's quite incredible what's going on from around the world. I'm going to get to it right now. We have an incredible submission from Salvador Dominguez from Georgia, and we're going to look at it. It's an iOS maps. You got to see it on your Apple. The coordinates are going to be below. It's a broad date classic metallic flying saucer captured on the iOS Apple app. Quite amazing. Now we're finally getting callers in. Sorry, people, for the major network hack. I'm not sure, but the number to call in right now to share your UFO stories to the world, Third Phase of the Moon, is 347-934-0378. You know what? Last week's episode was quite amazing. We had some incredible insight from military personnel. And they say they were hushed up by the MIB, the men in black. You know what I'm saying, people? They're out there and they are trying to suppress the information. Maybe that's why this broadcast was so scrubbed in the beginning of this hour. But we are back. We're going to fight back, people. We're not going to let it down. I want to tell everybody, refresh right now if you're logging in, because we are live to the world. And I want to get to people's callers because that's what it's all about. It is Third Phase of Moon Radio. Stand by, everybody. Blake Cousins, Third Phase of Moon, broadcasting live from Hawaii. And it is time for some Third Phase of Moon action, people. And we got the callers. They're lining up. We're back on. And it's quite amazing. And it is the time to get to people from around the world. Thanks, everybody from around the world, for calling in and checking out Third Phase of Moon and sharing your incredible evidence, photographs, videos, testimony. That's what it's all about. We're going to bring in the first caller to Third Phase of Moon tonight. We got two area code 801s. We're going to go to the first one. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Man, I'm glad we're broadcasting tonight. Thank you for calling in. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
My name's Nathan. I'm from Sandy City, Utah.
Hey, Nathan. Welcome to the show. What's going on in Sandy City, Utah?
Oh, nothing much. I'm glad the show's going on. I was waiting for like an hour. I'm like, what's going on? But no, about 2 weeks ago, I saw a UFO on your show just over at my house for about 20 seconds. It was crazy, and then everything all went haywire with your show. And I know F1 was talking about the Black Knight rocket and stuff, and I kind of started doing a little bit of research on it, and you know, I think his story's pretty validated on that.
Some audio feedback. Did you hear that? It's like, bow. Anonymous caller, you're there. Hello?
Is that me?
Yep. Gotcha. Where are you calling in from, sir?
From Texas.
Okay, there's been a lot of activity with UFOs in Texas this past few months.
Well, it's my story goes all the way back to 73.
And that was in Texas?
That was in Texas. I was about, say, 12 years old.
Wow. Okay, let me get your name. Let me get your name before we hear it.
Robert.
All right, Robert. Let's hear it. Go ahead.
And my dog was barking like crazy in the backyard. So I go out and run out there to the middle of the backyard. And he's just barking upwards. And I look up, and there's a disc with pulsating lights all around it, and just a slight hum. And the thing wasn't even, 100 feet. But, my dog kept on barking like crazy. My brother came out behind me. He's like 14 at the time. And so that thing was there for I don't know how long, but I tell you what, my dog didn't stop barking. And we were just up there looking at this thing in fright. And so finally, my brother ran into the house, so I ran right behind him. And I tell you what, I was traumatized because of that, not knowing what the hell it was. It certainly wasn't a helicopter.
Yeah, it's weird. These dogs, they have that extra sense. They're very, very sensitive to this kind of phenomenon going on. So go ahead.
So, well, at that point, we didn't even want to go out. So, not sure how long that craft was there. Since then, I've seen some things, been fortunate to see some things in the air, but nothing like that, not so close.
Yeah. What did that look like? Can you describe to us in detail what this craft looked like?
It was metallic. It was silver. It was a disc, but it had lights at the very end of it, and it was just approaching as soon as I ran out and looked at what my dog was barking at. This thing just approached and stopped right above us, literally right there, 100 feet. And what could we do? We were just there taking it in, but we were taking it in. We were fretful, so. Anyways,
Well, you know what? I want to. More questions. I got more questions for you because when people have a close encounter, very close. How far from you was this craft?
It must have been 100 feet.
How big do you think it was?
It could have been about 20 feet in diameter.
Was there any missing time afterwards? What were you guys in?
No. There was no missing time. My dog kept barking. I knew there was no missing time because he just didn't stop barking. No, there was no time. We just ran back in, and my dog kept barking out there. But nowadays I ask my brother, so what did we see? You remember that? He says, yeah. He doesn't want to talk about it, and so it's like to the point I want to disbelieve. I don't know.
So he has an issue because he doesn't want to be labeled because he had an extraterrestrial experience and want to be called a, whack, Looney Tune.
Yeah, he's got a mental block to it, and that's all right. But I told him, I said, you need to get a hypnosis and see, to find out what you saw, so you'll either believe or not, right? But we saw what we saw.
Wow, that's quite amazing. So you've had experiences after 1973. Nothing quite as amazing as that. And your older brother, right now, still to this day, doesn't want to admit, you can't have these.
He doesn't want to talk about it. I've called you before on some of the experience I've told you about, but it was in regards to living close to NASA with the orb and the fighter jet. While I was in the backyard.
Yeah, I kind of recall that. Yeah, I do recall that. There's a ways back, and so you didn't tell me about this story though. So that's cool. More information.
Well, I don't want to hog up all the space. I know a lot of people calling, so. But yeah, I've seen. I guess living here in Texas, you can definitely is more sightings than in other places. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I got a feeling there's something going on in Texas because there is so much evidence coming out of there within the past few months now. There's a lot of activity, a lot of big space out there, military bases all around. Who knows what's up? All I know is that this is Third Phase of Moon, and we're taking calls from around the world. And the number to call in is 347-934-0378. It is June 24, 2016. Blake Cousins, Third Phase of Moon. We'll be right back. Third Phase of Moon, Blake Cousins. Let's get to it. Area code 575. We're live. Third Phase of Moon. Welcome to the show. We got a few minutes left.
Hey, Blake. How you doing? This is Joe again.
Hey, Joe, man. How you doing?
Okay. Well, when you ran out of callers, I decided I'd go ahead and call like the other fellow. I didn't want to hog everything.
No, man, because when we got time to share stories, that's what we got to do. And we got to fill up that space. And I don't want to undermine any of your information right now because I want to get to people's information. So you got to remind me and the people from around the world, because you do sound very familiar.
I'm the guy who called in last week and talked about I had the fellow Magaha that threatened me.
Yes. Okay.
When I was in the military.
Welcome back. Yep. I got you. What do you think of the video? So we put this up on Third Phase.
Do what now?
Well, we put this out on Third Phase. Welcome back. And, there was a lot of reaction to your information. It was actually picked up by some outlets from around the world, some news information. I think it was the Clap Away and some other people. And that's really good that you came out and shared this.
Well, I stayed up almost all night that night trying to go and find the link where that guy is on several videos. That I know there's 2 or 3 different videos, and I can't remember exactly who puts them out, but it's something in the area of Disclosure series, and where they have a lot of different people that they interview, and he's on 2 or 3 of those. Because when I went in and just tried to Google his name or whatever, I didn't come up with anything. And I thought, well, now, a few years back, I could do that and he would pop up. So maybe those videos he was on, it wasn't too popular, or maybe he hasn't been on, any other new videos lately. I don't know.
Well, actually, Joe, it's quite the contrary.
Because I was sitting there thinking, well, you go and you tell people this story that some people would say, gee, that sounds like a far-fetched story to me. And you mentioned people.
Hold on, Joe, I got to tell you, Joe, you got to listen to this. It's quite amazing. After we shared your show, we had a lot of people that did their research, and James Magaha came up, and there was some video footage of him on Larry King Live. There was websites and a whole itinerary of his background, and it was quite amazing. And let me tell you, I can't share you the Third Phase Moon link, but you got to take a look at the video we posted. There's a lot of information that came in there, Joe.
Okay.
So
well, in that same time frame when I was in the Air Force, one morning there's really tall mountains right here next to Alamogordo, because we're at like 4,500 square feet. 4,500 altitude, and within 40 miles it goes up to 12,000 feet. And there's 2 ski resorts. Well, I was coming back early one morning to make it to the base to go to work, that I had been to a symposium up in the mountains that weekend, and I spent the night at someone's cabin, and said, well, I'll just get up early in the morning, drive in, dress for work, and go make coffee and all this out the base. So I was headed down the mountain, and in those days, the road was a 2-lane road, which now is like a 4-lane, almost like an interstate. And in those days, you had to go right through a Mescalero reservation, but in those days, not too many people lived anywhere except right in the main little town, where now they live everywhere. But when you come down from the highest peak, which is called the Apache Summit, you make a big curve, and when you come down, there's like the end of a mountain on the right, and then there's like a mesa that goes up to the north. And when I came around the corner, all of a sudden, my area of sight in front of me from the other side of that mountain was just this immense white light. And the only way to really describe it properly would be to say that it was like a fluid light. Does that make any sense to you? It was almost as if, if you looked at water, and if you look at water, you can see your hand going in and out of water, breaking the surface. Imagine the water had a white glow to it, and you were putting your hand in and taking it out. That's what this light was like, because when I got to it, you could just see, as the car drove along, you could just see where the car was entering it. It was really freaky. And when I got all the way into it, I pulled off to the side of the road and stopped and grabbed my sunglasses and put them on. And I said, I got to figure out what's making this light. So I stopped the car, put it in park, opened the door. I had a Sydney 2 Grand Torino. I got out, and I stood on the car and looked back over the car up into that mesa. But even with the sunglasses on, it was so bright, I had to put my hands in front of my eyes like this, trying to see, that light was so intense. And I don't know, I stood there for a long time looking at this, and of course the other part that I haven't mentioned yet was at the same time that all this is going on, it was the loudest roar I've ever heard in my life. And the only thing I could compare it to might be standing on the flight line when an F-4 is taking off.
Wow. Joe, I got to ask you this, Joe. What was your rank while you're in the military?
Gym was still running. My watch still was ticking.
Oh, wow. A lot of feedback there. A lot of feedback. I wanted to ask Joe. Joe, you got to listen. I want to hear your rank and what military did you serve for during this time when James Magaha tried to tell you to get out. Do you copy me, Joe?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Yeah, so what's your rank in your military back in the time when James Magaha said, you got to get out of here?
I was an airman first class. That was 2 stripes.
Wow, okay, so you know what? Stand by. We got F1 here. And F1, okay. I'm not sure if he got to hear this incredible story that we posted last week. F1, are you reading me?
Yeah, and it's amazing. You want to talk about timing is perfect. The gentleman that I was away from the house last weekend, so I didn't get a chance because honestly, I was in a casino winning some money and actually winning a lot of money last weekend. And I just listened to this. I was trying to get in, and I noticed the phone lines were down, and I couldn't understand it, so I put in a personal call to you guys. I'm sure you were busy trying to fix it. But when I reviewed the last show, one of the most interesting things that caught me, well, first of all, was the balls and the accuracy and the freshness of this gentleman's recantation of what he experienced at Holloman. And what's really interesting is that name that was given sounds really close to my name, which is Michael J. McKenna.
You're not James Magaha, are you? You're not James Magaha.
No
way.
But you know what's really funny is that years later, when I was in a sushi restaurant on Van Nuys Boulevard, a man that was kind of roly-poly, friendly as hell, in a Hawaiian shirt, came up, and we were in another part of the restaurant, and there were enough people in there where he kept looking over at us. I was with my girlfriend at that time of 7 years, and he came over and made small talk and immediately went into, so, do you guys, what are your subjects, one of the things that came up rather quickly was, well, I'm interested in things that people don't like to talk about. And he goes, oh, you like UFOs too? And I mean, it's really weird because especially in California, especially in Van Nuys, this guy invited us over to his house. And a lot of the stuff that we talked about till like 3, 4 in the morning, actually, I can't remember a frickin' lick of it.
Wow. That's weird because there's a caller in from last week that says that they had their memory wiped about an incredible invention that he created in his mind, and then the whole family knew about it, but the next day they all forgot about this vital information to make the world a better place. Quite interesting.
I can't tell you how many times that happened to me when I was high school, pre-high school, and after high school.
Absolutely. It happens all the time, I got a feeling. That a lot of great ideas suppressed and vaporized our memory.
It actually things that make you just go, oh, that's so bitching, and then you get so into it, and then the next day you're like, what was it? Why didn't I? And I actually had an external thought telling myself, write the shit down. Write the shit down. But when you're experiencing it, it's kind of like a roller coaster. You don't think to take your camera out when you're on a roller coaster descending either.
You know, that's exactly what I suggested to the caller, that next time if you got something like that, record it. And most times you're right, they just won't record it. You got a question for Joe from Holloman Base while he was working for the Air Force? F1?
Yeah, hey, Joe, one question. Did you ever ask your mom if you were a sleepwalker?
Yeah, as far as I know, I wasn't. Did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear a word.
Oh, I said, there's no sleepwalkers in my family.
Okay, well, there wasn't in mine either, but before my mom died, 10/10/11, when I thought she was getting close to what she didn't want to be here anymore on this planet, I tried to ask as many questions that I would ask before I thought she would die that were pertinent questions. And one of those questions that I always remembered was, and one of the things I got from after talking to Brian Vike up in Canada was, Mom, did I sleepwalk when I was young? If so, how many times? And do you remember who brought me home? And she kind of put this sheepish grin on her face and was kind of sad, like as she couldn't have protected me and didn't want to ever tell me, but she was going to tell me because she also knew that she was close to wanting to die. And she said, yes. And I said, how many times? 1, 2, 3. And she put her finger between her teeth, looked down kind of guiltily, and shook her head, yes. I stopped at 15, and she acknowledged yes. And I said, do you ever remember who brought me home? And I lived on the East Coast at this time, and a lot of this stuff was during the winter. And she said, no, I never remembered who brought you home. And I go, well, we talk about memories being wiped or consciousness or guilt. Here's a kid that's 2, 3 years old at the most in the middle of a winter on the East Coast, and he is brought back to the house by someone in a one-colored jumpsuit, and she can never remember the face or what his name was or where they found me. I also was in the service when I saw a ship come out of the ocean when we were on a Goodwill tour. I thought it could have covered the Coliseum, the LA Coliseum. I saw 2 rows of windows. It was very close off the port side of our ship. I saw figures standing in the windows, one that looked 13 feet tall, only if the others were 4 feet tall. This one was double, triple its size in between a lot of the little ones. I reported it to the captain. I was processed out of the Navy, and I was a nuclear power electronics technician, which they had spent over $1 million in my education. My father also was Master Chief of the Command Seabee at Port Wanebe. I went to a casino recently and had a appreciation dinner for those that are high rollers. In the room that I went to, there was a 77-year-old man that we gravitated to. There weren't many couples left at the end of the evening, and he told me that they used to see 10s and 10s up to 100 a week in Nam, but we're told never to say anything about it. And the reason why, even though his wife was looking at him like, why the hell are you saying this now, is he really didn't give a shit. He knew he was getting close to where he was going to be in life. But
so you're saying you're meeting some commanders, generals from Vietnam area, the era of Vietnam, on location in Vietnam, and they were watching UFOs, and they were told not to report it. F1?
Absolutely. And, if I could bring my wife in here, but she doesn't like to talk to you guys, she will verify it, that we spent almost to the point where they had to kick us out of that particular ball conference room early in the morning. We sat there and talked all night long because everything that I told him made him feel more and more comfortable that it was going upon someone as a comforting acknowledgement that what I've seen and what I'm going to see in my life is true, so that I can deal with it appropriately.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, F1. That's for sure. We got some questions into Joe. And Joe, have you?
Yes.
Basically, Joe, you were. Billy Hassett once asked you, have you ever seen a TR-3B or a UFO?
Well, that's what I was getting to in my story about the white light. When I was trying to figure out where the light was coming from, as the fog was kind of lifting and it was getting brighter into the daylight, then all of a sudden I figured out what I was looking at, because it was kind of hard to tell it originally. But I was looking at a craft, and the craft I was looking at was about the size of a football field. And now I don't know if I was looking at the front, the back, the side, or what,
What makes you
because
think is that
it was just like imagine a kind of rectangular shape out in the middle of nowhere, and right, evenly spaced apart were these 4 round circles of light. And the only thing I could compare these things to was, I don't know how long ago, maybe in the 50s or 60s, when they had a Hollywood premiere, they brought out the searchlights that you could see the beam going up into the sky. It was so strong. And imagine searchlights that were like 20 foot in diameter, 4 of them in a row, okay, with this liquid white light. And also, as I kept staring and it got lighter, at the bottom of this thing, there was movement. In order to describe it, you may not understand this, but I try to make comparisons that people understand to make it a little bit easier to, if you look at a monitor or a TV screen, take your fingers and put them in front of the screen, and then move them back and forth like your fingers or legs walking. And as you do, it works better on a TV screen than on a monitor. You can actually see like a whole bunch of little still images, like the way they make a cartoon by drawing a bunch of pictures and then flipping the pages. And I call it little scissor movements. Well, I could see that at the bottom of these lights, where the black thing met the tall Johnson grass that was coming up from the mesa there. And and I don't know how long I was really there, but I remember at that point thinking to myself, oh, they're making repairs. And then the next thing I thought of was, repairs on what? And then all of a sudden it hit me, UFO. And as soon as that popped into my head, all the hair on my body just went, ah! And this rush of fear came over me, and I'm like, oh, what? Bad word, explicit word, I got to get out of here. And then I remember I'm all alone, and I got back in my car, and I shut the door, and I thought, they always say that when you're having a close encounter that your engine stops and whatever, but the roar was so loud I couldn't tell if my engine was going or not. All I knew what to do is I just put my foot on the gas and put it in and drive, and the car worked. I got back up on the roadway and I drove out of that light just like I drove into that light, and I could still see it behind me in the rearview mirror. And I made it back to Alamogordo and out to the base. And when I did, I was an hour late for work. Now, if I hadn't have stopped to look at that, I would have been a half an hour early for work. Well, I never told anybody in the military about that because, in my opinion, I was smart enough to know that if you do, and see, this sighting was before well, actually, yeah, I wasn't not a sergeant yet. I was an airman. It happened about 9 months before the threatening, because about 4 months after that is when I made airman first. Yeah, okay, because after the thing with Magaha, everything after that was pretty. Nothing much happened after that in my life. Everything got pretty. Actually, after all that, I started drinking a lot, to tell you the truth. And by the time I got out of the military, I was a drunk. And I almost drank myself to death. And I quit on my own. When I knew I had a problem, and I didn't know anything about AA and all this stuff. It was just that I had a problem, and I couldn't live with myself anymore. So I just remember telling all my friends, "Don't anybody come and see me this weekend. I'm going to be busy." And I went home and I locked myself into my apartment, and I didn't come out until it was over. And that was like almost 2 weeks. And I mean, I went to the DTs and the pink elephants and the hairy spiders and you name it. It was one of the worst times of my life. And, it was like after it was over and I realized I'm going to live, then people were like telling me, "Man, you could have died from that." And I thought, "Oh, well, thanks for telling me now." So, wow. Anyhow, that was July the 4th of 1976 was the last day I ever took a drop of alcohol, and never had a drop since.
Amazing. On July 4th, that's when my brother and I arrive in Los Angeles while we do some on-site location reporting. So that's going to be quite fun. We're going to be in California reporting UFO sightings and interviews with real people just like Joe, sharing their incredible information. Let me ask.
And a few years ago, I quit smoking successfully.
No, that's what I wanted to ask.
When I got over that, something hit me in the head because, in my mind, I remembered that back when I was a sergeant and drinking heavy by then, I went to a place downtown called the Lamplighter Restaurant, no longer there, and there was a lady there that was giving a seminar. She was giving some kind of a speech, and there was a bunch of people from the town there, and she was talking about the light ships that, oddly enough, between Alamogordo and the next biggest little town is Tularosa, and in between there's a little bitty place called La Luz. Well, L-A-L-U-Z. In Spanish, that means the light. Okay. And right in the center of town is a little Catholic church. And mostly around there is Spanish-speaking people. So I had always just kind of assumed that the name La Luz had something to do with the Catholic Church, And this woman that came and gave the seminar, she had something else to say about it. And when she introduced us to what she had to say, I'm like, oh my God, sitting right under my nose, and I never even knew it. That La Luz didn't get its name because of the church. It got its name because in the 1800s, the people that settled the town used to go to the foothills and watch the light ships come in. And these were some kind of UFOs, and they used to congregate up on this mountain. And
Absolutely.
at certain times,
they do congregate around those mountains, Joe. You're right, and they call them La Luz, lights. La Luz is the lights in the sky, and it's definitely something that is in relation to the UFO phenomenon. It's been going on for, I'd say, thousands of years. Hundreds of thousands.
And it was kind of like, and then the deal with her was like, when at the end of the little seminar, she asked 9 people to stay behind, and I was one she asked to stay behind. And at the time, I was suffering from a pretty bad hangover and had bloodshot eyes, but I made it to that seminar because I had to be there anyway. Well, she kind of told everybody, when everybody left, the reason that she kept the 9 people behind was because she said we had an outstanding aura. That's, I think you say A-U-R-A. An aura is every person on the face of the earth, according to a psychic, has an energy field that emits from your soul, and certain people who are in tune with things like this can see this, where the rest of us just see a person. Well, she could see this, and she could tell that certain ones were pulsating brighter than others, and we had the brightest ones in the room. And she told us that the significance of this is that we were prime candidates to be contacted by ETs sometime in our lifetime. And then everybody kind of got up and started leaving, and then she came up to me and she told me, I get the feeling that you would really enjoy that, wouldn't you? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she says, well, then I need to give you one specific tip. And I said, what's that? And she says, ETs don't like people who drink and smoke. And I said, well.
Wow. That's incredible, Joe. There's a lot of people that have a lot of issues when they have close encounters with aliens and UFOs. And you got to be strong, people. You got to be strong. Don't let it get you down. I know Jack has been having issues. We're going to be keeping in touch with Jack. Joe has some incredible stories. Thanks, Joe, for calling in, because that's what it's all about. The information as it comes in. Don't let alien abduction get you down, people. It's a good thing. It's very good. We'll be back next week, Friday, for more information, and stay tuned to Third Phase of Moon on our YouTube channel on a daily basis as information and incredible submissions from around the world. It's unbelievable, people. It's hard to believe the information coming in, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back next week, Friday. Sorry for the delay on tonight's radio show, but it'll be back. Same time, the networks want to break it down and bring down the information. But no, we survived, people. Thanks for joining us. Big show tonight. Big show. We'll see you again next week, people. Thank you so much. Billy Hassel. Brandy Weaver. Corey Allard. Devin Sturgeon. Flip it for you, as always. Thank you, guys. Thank you, people. We got Joe Widener. I just love to listen. Thank you so much. Martin K. Martin Card. Let's just go Martin. Thanks, Martin. We got TNAD. The TNA Dark Knight. Thanks, TNA Dark Knight. As always, the Bone Throne. Appreciate it, Bone Throne. We're going through the list of listeners. We got some more. Jacob, Whisker 221, Max Spirit, Stalls, Speckle Spark, and Weird Stuff. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for Third Phase.